everyone, it's John from What Up, and welcome back to another video. And today we're talking deaths in Season 3 of Sony and Amazon's Wheel of Time show. We know at least one is going to happen for sure, and if Season 2 taught us anything, no one is safe. So we're going to dive into who I think may be the most likely candidates to die next season, based on a bunch of different stuff. I want to stress this is pure conjecture. This is by no means any inside information. However, it is based on rumors, things that are happening in the fandom, interviews, as well as, well, we have to, based on the books too, right? So we're going to talk about all of those different things in today's video. Now, if you're new to the channel, you don't know what we do here, we talk about Wheel of Time all of the time. If you like that sort of thing, of course, subscribe to the channel and tell two friends, because we're trying to grow just a little bit bigger prior to the release of Season 3. But let's face it, I think we have at least another year or more before that happens. Now, stay tuned at the end of the video for a community section. This one's kind of a special one. There is a new podcast that is doing a D&D campaign based in the Wheel of Time world with Wheel of Time characters. I get to sit down with them, talk about a couple of different things with their campaign. We have the teaser link down below in the description box for you to take a look at. And of course, I made a character, and for those of you who are regulars on the channel, you probably know who my favorite character is, and I did make that character, and his stats will not surprise you. So, before we get into the video, I do have to give a bit of a spoiler warning, because we are talking who dies in the series, and in fact, I'm going to talk about some things right up to and including the last battle, so I have to give a full book spoiler warning for this particular episode. I apologize if you haven't read the books yet and you don't like spoilers, because that's just the way this one has to be. So, spoiler warning. In today's video, since we're talking about deaths in Season 3, and they likely happen in the books as well, I am going to spoil all 14 of the Wheel of Time books. That's the Eye of the World right up through and including A Memory of Light. So if you haven't read all 14 books by Robert Jordan and Brandon Sanderson and have not seen the first 2 seasons of the show streaming right now on Prime Video, be forewarned, I'm going to ruin plot points, character arcs, and some pretty major stuff because we are talking about deaths here. All right, let's get on to the video. All right, so before we get into the rest of the video, again, stay tuned at the end of the video for my community section. We're talking with Who Talks Watch. They are a podcast / YouTube channel that does various D&D campaigns for different things. And they're doing one right now, launching tomorrow, February 6th, for the Wheel of Time. So I get to sit down and talk with them. You're not going to want to miss it. It's pretty cool. Then at the very end of my video, I'm going to explain my character that I made. And yeah, it's my favorite character, and it's hilarious. So don't miss that. Stay to the end of the video for that. All right, other than that, you're probably asking yourselves, why this video, why now, John? I mean, Season 3 isn't out yet. We're looking at, and this is my speculation, next fall. We're looking at fall of 2025 before we see the actual show, and I think that's a fairly decent and probably accurate guess. It's going to be 2 years between shows, folks. I think this is going to become the norm. I have a whole other video queued up about that. I'm not happy about it, and I kind of rant a little bit in it. It's kind of funny. I don't rant often, but I rant in that one. So you're not going to miss that. But why this video now? We're talking a long time before the season airs. Well, it all has to do with some stuff that happens in social media with the fandom. Now, I know not a lot of you out there have X accounts, formerly known as Twitter. So most of you have just moved away from that social media platform. And there's been a ton of people move away. I think my followers get cut in half, so to speak, on there. But I stay for the fandom because Twitter Time is still a fairly substantial Wheel of Time fandom. They are very inclusive. They're very supportive. There's a whole lot of good that comes out of the community. If you ignore all the other bad connotations and bad things that happen on X, that place is kind of like a little oasis of good there. Now, however, there's always a lot of drama and other things going on, so it's always very interesting. I don't normally share that stuff with you folks, but I do share any official news comes out or rumors, and this has to do with something called Rosamund Gate. Now, if you haven't been on X, you probably haven't heard of this, but essentially there was a podcast talking about Rosamund Pike, and in this podcast, and I've linked the actual X post down below in the description box. I'm not 100% sure if you can see it without an account because I don't know the new rules and things change all the time there, but it is there if you want to look at it. It's basically a snippet of a podcast. And it talks about Rosamund Pike moving back to London. So she is selling her house in Prague. She's getting rid of it. She's moving back to London. She's moving her family back there. And we all know as a fandom that she kind of moved to Prague 6 years ago for the Wheel of Time. She was this central character to the show. Morin was billed as the main character. And she's also a producer on the show as well. So it made sense for her to move there if she's going to focus on that. Now, she has still done a ton of other stuff. Some very, very, really good stuff as well in the last couple of years, but her main focus has been the Wheel of Time, and that's where she's kind of hung out. And now that she's moving back to London, it just sparked wild debate on why she'd be doing that, including the fact that something that happens in the books is being accelerated a little bit quicker, We may see it in season 3, which is Morin's supposed death. Now, do I know if it's going to happen? No, I have no idea at all, but during this video, I'll let you know what I do know and do what I do and speculate on what could possibly happen. I'll let you guys form your own opinions by the end of the video on it. All right, so all of that is a very long-winded way of saying some stuff happened to the fandom, people are freaking out, and I want to talk about it. So, possible deaths for season 3. Now, we know for sure there is a death in season 3. For sure. This is not a given, because Rafe Judkins had actually said it in an interview last year at Comic-Con. He said that a death in season 3 will surprise everyone. When he was talking about season 3, when they were kind of going through stuff for season 2 and whatnot, he let that slip, and people have been abuzz about it ever since. That coupled with the fact that if you remember, if you've been a follower of the channel for quite some time, way back, we're talking, I don't know if it was pre-season 1 or during season 1, I talked about deaths on the show here on the channel, and at the time I had some insider information that prompted me to talk about it just a little bit, and it was the fact that there were going to be a few deaths in the show that are going to surprise fans. Not only will they surprise fans, these are people that would last it to the last battle or beyond in the books, but aren't going to make it in the show. And at the time, I really didn't know much about it, but then season 2 happened, and bam, we lost Uno. We all know Uno kind of makes it near the end there, and we lost him very early on, and he was kind of a fan favorite, so it kind of shocked everyone. It wasn't quite a Stark moment, but it was close. It was still pretty shocking to the fandom, especially those who knew nothing about any of the books or anything like that and didn't realize that this was a huge change. But when I say deaths, it was plural. So there were more characters, and I had widely speculated at the time some other ones as well. And I think with season 3, some of the things they're filming, some of these make sense. So the first one we're going to talk about are Alana's warders. Now, during the 4th book, one of them dies. It happens. So during the Battle of the Two Rivers, one of the warders dies, and it just ruins Alana. It happens off page. It's talked about a little bit. It happens before Perrin and company kind of get to the Two Rivers. So during A Shadow Rising, she loses a warder, and it was devastating to her. Like it just defined. It was one of the first moments in the books where they talked about a sister losing a warder and what it meant. So in the show, the warders are a fair bit different than they are in the books. So we have Ivan and we have Maxim in the show, and in the book series we had Ivan and we had Owen. Now Owen was the one that died in the book series, and they changed Owen's name for a bunch of different reasons, but mostly the fandom kind of settled on the reason that we thought it would confuse things with Tom's nephew Owen, but that really hasn't been mentioned at all yet, so we're not 100% on why the name was changed, but one of them could possibly die. Now, Ivan makes it in the books, so he's not the one that dies in Two Rivers. However, Maxim has gotten far more screen time than Ivan has so far. Maxim, Taylor Napier, is also, I think, a little bit closer to production than some of the other actors on set will be, and that's mainly because he is the showrunner's partner. So I think there's a very good chance that they probably won't kill his character off, because if they're going to kill one of the two warders, and they've already given him more screen time, more lines, more kind of central to the plot than Alana's other warder, then Ivan of the two would be probably, I wouldn't say like a sure thing, but I would say it's probably more likely, in my opinion anyway. So the first of the couple of deaths that we're going to talk about today that could happen in season 3 will be Ivan, I think. Could be Maxim if they're going with one of the warders, but I really don't think it's going to be him. Unless they're going for that shock value, and it would shock the cast and the crew, but it really wouldn't shock anybody who has read the books or hasn't read the books either, really, I guess. So the first one is one of Alana's warders. Put this one at like a 75%. I'm like 75% sure that one of Alana's warders is going to just not make it through the next season, because they're going to showcase the whole thing. We've already seen it in the show in season 1, but I think we're going to see it again in season 3. All right, next death I want to talk about is Rosamund Pike's Morin. Now, for those of you who have read the books, this is not a shock. In the Fires of Heaven, Morin actually dies. And I'm putting dies in quotation marks. She dies because she dies, but she doesn't really. She comes back much later in the book series, and then she kind of survives through to the end. However, killing her off and bringing her back does kind of make sense at this junction in the story, because Morin's character acts as a guide to Rand. She does a lot of things with Rand, and when she dies in the waste before they actually come back out of the waste. So it's one of those things. She's actually within Rhuidean. She is packing up some wagons and things to go, and she makes very, very sure that a certain twisted redstone door frame is on one of the wagons in a certain way. And when Lanfear attacks, as she is wont to do after she finds out about Rand with other women, Morin kind of grapples with her, and they get pulled into that doorway, and it melts. It kind of destroys itself, burns the wagons down and whatnot. And at that point, the bond with Land is severed, and he is, forced to go seek out another Aes Sedai. Are they going to do this in the show? Well, if we didn't get the whole Lan and Moraine plotline in season 2, I would say this is 100% going to happen. Like, 100% going to happen. Because it's a pretty big integral part of the books, and it allows Rand to sort of grow as his character on his own afterwards. Moraine gives him a lot of advice, and they have they're at odds for a bit, and it provides some really rich storytelling. But then when she's gone, he kind of has to fumble around on his own, and he is one of those names on the list that he keeps in his head of people that have died for him. So I would have said, if they didn't do the whole her being shielded, but they think she was stilled, and Land didn't have the bond, and all that stuff that happened in season 2 that, in my opinion, drug on far too long, I would say they would likely kill her off. But they did do that. So we've already seen that part of the storyline where Land was kind of mopey and sad, and we had like not a great depiction of Lan, in my opinion. He's not a character everybody really loves when he's like that. And he was with Alana instead of Miriel, like he is in the book series. So because we've already seen that, and because Rosamund Pike has been billed as the main character of the show, and she's also producer in the show, will she die? Or are they still going to go through that? Well, I think it's been mentioned a couple of different times that, or hinted at, that she will, that she's not going to make it to the end of the show. So she still may die. And it does make sense that she dies during season 3 because they're in the waste. They're filming the waste scenes right now as we speak in South Africa, I think until at least March. So if she dies there, especially during those scenes, it allows Rand to kind of step up and grow. And remember, this is a very accelerated version of the books. We're talking hugely accelerated. They're cramming everything in. They're shooting for 8 seasons. They're hoping for 8 seasons. But there's 2 years between seasons. Amazon is not renewed season 4 yet. They're very big on completion rates. They're talking about cutting episodes down from 8 to less, maybe 6. They're hesitant to give them more time. Killing her off now does make a ton of sense, at least if they're following that portion of the storyline from the books. So Moraine, second death that could possibly happen in the books, in the show in season 3, and I give this one probably a good 70% chance. I'd say that there's a good chance that she's going to die in season 3. All right, now we're going to talk about the last death that I think is not just possible, but entirely likely for season 3, and that's Swan. Now, Swan is one of those characters that makes it to the end. Remember when we talked about this at the beginning of the video, when I had some information years ago about characters that made it to the very end that didn't in the show? Her name was one of the very first ones that popped to my mind. That's for a couple of different reasons. There's been a number of articles out there about how difficult her schedule has been with the Wheel of Time. It's hard to get her on set, hard to get everybody together. She's a very busy, very prominent actress. She does a whole lot of different projects, and it's really hard to keep her. So the idea of keeping Swan for the next 6 seasons is probably a difficult one at best. Also, when the coup happens, which we know happens during season 3, we've already seen behind the scenes photos of the coup that happens, blood on the walls, blood on warders in the White Tower. So we know the coup does happen. It would not be a total stretch to have her die during the coup and then have Lyanna step up and take on the rest of her roles for the rest of the series. Now you got to remember, in the book series, there's over 2,700 named characters. There's a ton of stuff going on. They are pruning like mad. Any character that can take on the role of multiple other characters while still having some screen time and making the fans happy is likely going to happen. Now, Swan is very important to a bunch of different storylines that happen later on in the books, Gawyn's most notably. However, Is she integral? I don't believe so. I think that there are other characters, or multiple other characters, can pick up those little faucets of what goes on. I would be a little sad not to see the relationship between her and Gareth Bryn come to fruition on screen, although considering the fact that the show is still pushing Morin and her relationship as being current, unlike the book series, which had happened in the past, I think the likelihood of her leaving Moraine, so to speak, on screen and going with Gareth Bryn is probably pretty low. So I think that whole storyline there may change just a little bit if she does stay around. But in my opinion, I think she is the most likely candidate for a death in season 3 out of anyone. Personally, I think so. Now, am I happy with any of these choices that I've outlined today? No. No, I'm super not. I would be happy if everyone on the show made it to the very end of the show, because they're all very talented actors and actresses, and they bring a lot to the screen, and each has their own unique take on the character that I super love. However, we know we're going to lose some people, and these ones are the most likely, in my opinion. That's just the way it is. So let me know in the comments down below what you folks think. Who do you think is going to kind of get killed off in season 3, not make it to season 4 and beyond? Do you think these 3 are likely candidates? Do you think it could be someone else? Or, and this isn't something we haven't talked about, it could be multiple people. I mean, all of these could happen. We really don't know. They've changed the source material just a little bit for the show. They've changed some of the storylines. They've accelerated some things. They've moved some other things around. So we really don't know how they're going to continue on going forward. So it's quite possible they kill off a bunch of people to make it easier on screen. Remember, we can't be following 15 to 20 different storylines, which happens at some points in the book series. We go whole books without seeing point of views from some of the main characters, in fact. So it would be easier for the writer's room to just kind of trim down the options. So let me know what you folks think in the comments down below. All right, so now we're going to dive into the community section here. We're talking with Who's Talking Watch. It is a podcast / YouTube channel that does D&D campaigns. Think Vox Machina ish type, that kind of stuff, but they're doing it with other fandoms. So this is their Wheel of Time one. Again, this starts tomorrow, February 6th. I got a chance to sit down with a couple of them a few days ago. This would have been posted much earlier, but things have happened with the weather and stuff here. So I did get to sit down with them, talk a bit about it. And again, all their information is posted down below in the description box. And then stay tuned for after that little chat with them. And I'll show you my character sheet for Gawyn. All right, folks, as promised, here they are. Why don't you folks just tell us a little bit about what your new Wheel of Time project is?
Yeah, sure. So I'm Brad. I was the DM for the arc that we ran. And so the whole idea of our podcast, Who's Taking Watch, is to take like different sections of like some of our favorite literary worlds and tell like little short arcs. There's lots of great shows that tell long form storytelling, but we wanted to keep it like, 20-ish episodes or so. And just the idea of exploring, we all know what happens in the world of the adventurers, of the heroes of all the books, but there's a whole world outside of that. And especially for the Wheel of Time, there's like so much that we don't get to see. So it was just imagining a little spot outside of the action where we could sort of imagine what might have happened there.
Yeah, my name is Victor. I am one of the lucky cast members that got to play a character in this world and this arc. And so it was very much that feeling when I was young and reading and growing up and, imagining myself, where would I be in the storyline and like, how would I, affect things. And so being able to play as a character in, a fantasy series backdrop that I grew up reading and loving was a real treat. So it was a lot of fun.
You folks took 5th edition and kind of homebrewed it a little bit to jam in Wheel of Time elements into the characters.
Yeah.
So can you tell me a little bit about a couple of the characters that you folks will maybe see, or will spoil anything from it?
No. I mean, we can talk about some stuff for sure. And I mean, I'll say this: there's a great floating around out there. There's a great whole conversion of 5th edition to like work with really specific channeling rules. But because we're hopping in and out of so many worlds, I just sort of ratcheted as many elements of the magic system into actual 5e. But you could still come out with some really cool stuff. So I mean, Victor, your character specifically, Victor's playing an Ogier, so that was a lot of fun to sort of stat out.
I mean, that's the dream, right?
Yeah.
Years in the book, like, Loyal is by far, my favorite character. And so when Brad proposed this idea of like, oh, how about the Wheel of Time, guys? I was like, Brad, can I play an Ogier? Like, that was the question.
Please let me.
Yeah. Yeah. So yeah, and we made it work. You crafted this new race that we felt represented Ogiers well.
Yeah.
And then I got to put a little twist on it.
Yeah.
So,
And outside of that, I mean, there's so many things in the world that are sort of left up to the imagination. So we're set in the Civil War in Gildan right as the series picks up. So just a little bit south.
Nice.
So it's just imagining what's going on in there. But Robert Jordan did, I think, DMs who want to run a game in the Wheel of Times world, the biggest solid in the world, by including all these sections with little bubbles of evil where unexpected and inexplicable things happen. So for me, that was a lot of fun in terms of whenever my players threw me a curveball and I had to go, we're ending the episode. And then I had a week to sort of plan, what's my bubble of evil going to do this time? So it was a lot of fun to really explore like existing monsters and forces in the world, but also just like an open license to get creative, which was super rad.
I'm
That's
sure
awesome.
as a fellow DM, you probably can relate to the fact when you're like, okay, players, like, you're guiding them in a certain direction, and then
they
the players
don't.
just you would fight them.
You would hope that they do, but they don't ever. So
Yeah, no, I couldn't imagine the amount of work it would have taken to take a whole fantasy world and kind of cram it into like an original storyline and then herd cats through this storyline and make them all do the right things so the storyline progresses. So it had to have been a ton of work. And you said you've been working on this for quite some time now?
Yeah. So we this is our first time doing anything like this. Fortunately, I have, as you might guess, a little bit of experience with editing audio, so that was a huge help for us. But it still was a huge learning curve, and I think episode 1 at the intro, I'm already at that point saying, guys, this is so exciting. We've been working for such a long time to get to this point. And I said that we'd been working for a long time over a year and a half ago. So it's been quite some time. So it's almost like, we hit submit on a release date and it was like, I can't believe this is actually happening. So it's really a joy that it's actually coming to fruition now.
So release date is February 6th.
But it was worth the wait. I have to say, it was definitely worth the wait. It's honestly shaped up into something really cool. It's funny looking back at episode 1 now that we've done it for like a year and a half since that point, and seeing like how we were all stiff as a board, and now we've mellowed out, and like it's like even throughout that arc, the shenanigans we get up to as it progresses is very typical D&D shenanigans.
It's an arc of watching 5 people learn to relax on camera, and I think it's really moving.
And it's not a big stretch to put D&D on YouTube either, or on a podcast, because people have done it and done it very successfully. So I know I can't wait to watch it because it's Wheel of Time related. So I'm pumped about that. That makes me happy. But you folks said before we started recording, February 6th is the release date?
Yeah. So February 6th. So what we're doing typically is doing one episode out every Tuesday at 7 Eastern Standard Time. But for the first batch of episodes, we're putting out 3 at once. So just so you can, have a bit more to sort of dive into and see if it's something that you're interested in. I think we cover a lot more beats past like the first getting to know the characters episode. So we wanted to like release a bit more at the beginning. But yeah, February 6th, Tuesday at 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time on our YouTube page. The first episodes will be up.
Awesome. So we have a little bit of a trailer. I've left a link to it down below in the description box for you folks at home. It should be live now as the video airs. So check that out, and definitely go check out their channel. And I did get a chance to sit down with these folks, and they gave me some sample characters that they made, which let me make my own. And of course, I made Gawyn. It's my favorite character, and well, as you can all see, I have the Gawyn tattoo there. You folks may not have known that. but yes,
Absolutely
that's
not. No, but that lines up.
yeah, it tracks. So we'll probably end the video today, and I'll show off the character sheet that they kind of gave me some advice on, so to speak. But let me look at theirs, and I had a whole lot of fun with that. So definitely check these folks out. It's going to be how many episodes total? You think
21?
20-ish?
20-ish episodes.
So
Yes.
it's going to run for quite some time. I get links to all of the places that you can find them down below in the description box. Please go check them out. And definitely check back here for more updates, because if I can finagle my way in at some point or another, I'd love to. Just as a one shot, just in walking in the background going, hey, how's it going? But yeah, definitely check them out. Anything else you folks want to say before I start showing off the character sheet that you guys helped me with?
No, just thanks for your time. Thanks for having us. It's a lot of fun to get to chat with people who are excited about this world as I am, as I was when I was putting this together. So thanks so much for having us on to chat.
Awesome.
It was a lot of fun.
Pleasure meeting the both of you, and I can't wait to see the rest of the episodes after they come out. All right,
Absolutely.
let's
Thank you
get
so
on.
much.
Let's get onto that character sheet now.
Yeah, sure.
All right. As promised, here's the character sheet for Gawyn. I should have did it in pen or digital or something else. I don't like doing D&D sheets digital. I don't like I don't like doing them in pen. They have to be in pencil. So it's a little hard to see, but we'll go through this here. Those of you who are familiar with D&D, this is super homebrew. Just so you're aware, it was a point-buy system where we set the character's level, and then we just bought points up to that level. And I was allowed to kind of change the way they're supposed to be allocated to fit the character just a little bit better. And of course, I had to make up some equipment for him, but all the abilities and whatnot are basically straight from 5th edition D&D. So if you're not a D&D fan, this may not be as interesting to you as to D&D fans out there, but I myself, big fan of D&D. I DM a lot. I play D&D a lot. I super love it. Got my kids all into it. They all DM and stuff now, so it's just one of those things that I've always done. So, of course, he's human, he's good neutral, and I multi-classed him. So 7 levels in fighter, 3 levels in barbarian, and he has a noble background. I made him charming, regal, attractive, smooth. He's got a lot of riz, so to speak. So he's got a lot of charisma. He's able to kind of finagle his way around different people. His ideal is to protect Gawyn by doing what he thinks is best, not her. So I think that fits right in with his character. He does exactly what he thinks is best all the time, regardless of what anyone else thinks, whether it's right, wrong, or sideways. That's what he does. So he's a warder to Gawyn, First Prince of the Sword. His flaws, he's selfish. He has main character syndrome, because by golly gee does he ever. He's super main character syndrome. He thinks that he's the main character of the story, when in fact he's not at all, and because of that, things don't work out the way he expects. Spirited complex, he's immature, bunch of other things, but what I want to talk about here are some of the stats. His wisdom's -1. For those of you who don't know what D&D stats are, strength is like how strong you are. That kind of makes sense. Dexterity is how quick, how dexterous you are. I mean, they're pretty much self-explanatory. Constitution has more to do with your hit points and your ability to resist things. Intelligence and wisdom are the ones that kind of trip people up. So intelligence is knowing tomato is a fruit. Wisdom is knowing not to make a smoothie out of it. That makes any sense whatsoever. Think of wisdom like common sense. It's just the way it is. So of course, his common sense was -1. And that gave him -3 to insight and -3 to perception, which I thought was super fitting to his character, because he does not read the room ever. He just doesn't. And I know at this point, not all of you have been with the channel for quite some time, so you're like, why did you make Gawyn? He's my favorite character. I've in fact have Gawyn tattoos. I love him. I love him a whole bunch. I've done whole videos here, half-hour, 45-minute videos on why I love him so much and how good of a character he is. And it's not because he's a great person. It's not because he is the ideal paragon of what a character should be. It's because he's written so well. He's broken, he's flawed, he is just terrible, and I love him for it. Now, talking about some of this equipment, I gave him, and those of you who do play D&D will appreciate this a fair bit. I gave him a piece of equipment I made up. Remember at the end of the series, he had those blood knife rings, and he put a bunch of them on, and he was like, I'm going to go kill Demandred. I'm going to do this. I'm going to be the hero of my own story and everyone else's story. Knowing they're going to kill him, knowing it's bad. So, of course, I had to give him a blood knife ring. As soon as he puts it on, it sets his strength to 25, it triples his movement speed, it casts Blur on himself without any concentration needed, but he's going to take half his health per turn in damage, and then if he takes it off, he will continue to take 1d8 per health damage per turn until he's dead. No saving throws, no nothing, he just dies. That's it. There's no coming back from this. I thought that was pretty fitting for his character. Anyway, yeah, so if you like D&D, if you like Wheel of Time, these people are doing a Wheel of Time D&D campaign, and I am hopefully going to make an appearance at some point or another on their channel during the campaign, because I think that would be super fun to do kind of a one-shot in the background. Even if I'm villager number 3 shoveling hay, that would be kind of cool. I love being involved in Wheel of Time stuff. So, make sure you check them out. Of course, support all the other Wheel of Time channels out there, whether they be podcasts or YouTube channels or websites or art or Etsy's or shops on eBay or just stuff people make, and they're just kind of like advertising on Facebook or Facebook groups, because realistically at this point we don't have a whole lot of Wheel of Time merch out there. We don't have a whole lot of Wheel of Time coverage at all. And the more we support people in the fandom that do this and support each other in the fandom as we do this, the more likelihood other people are going to do it too. And to me, having new Wheel of Time stuff is amazing. I love Wheel of Time stuff. I super do. Now, speaking of that, slight teaser, expect to see something from me in the next couple of weeks about a couple of big Wheel of Time things that are coming. I can't say much more about it than that, but it's pretty exciting. I can't wait for it to happen. Yeah. There's things coming. There is, folks. Always be very patient, I guess. The wheels turn slowly in today's world. Anyway, thank you so very much for sticking with me here to the very end. Here's to many more.